Hey everyone, welcome to this lesson. In this one, we're going to talk about functions, and I want to give you a little bit more details on functions generally and how do you actually work with them, and a few other important things such as built-in functions. Also, on top of that, the most important part, which is the custom functions. So let's think about this for a second. What is a function? Now, if you think about it so far, we have actually encountered functions a lot. For example, two of the most common functions we've seen has been, one of them has been print, the other one has been the length function, essentially telling us, how long is a string or a variable, and also for the print, it just prints a statement or a text. Essentially, we have used these over and over, and a few other functions that we've talked about so far has been the integer function, essentially turning a string into a number, when we add that int to the beginning, and that is basically a function. Now these are built-in functions, and Python has a lot of built-in functions, and we will talk about that in the next video. I just want to, in this one, I would just want to visually explain exactly what is a function. So these are functions. Now the idea with a function, if you think about it, is that it is designed to do something, serve a function, right? So like that is a function. Now the reason you have functions is that so you don't have to repeat the same code over and over. So for example, for the print, there is actually a huge background in the print and how Python actually operates to print a simple text. So that is essentially a group of code that is built into this function and has been presented in the Python language as a built-in function called print. And same thing for the length. So that's it, the idea. These functions that you see, they themselves are actually codes. Now think about it this way. The reason we use functions is that we don't have to code over and over the same thing, right? Imagine if you had to write 10 lines of code to actually just print hello, or display the text hello world or something. That would be really frustrating, right? So that's why we have functions. It's essentially a box of code. Now think about it this way. Imagine you have a house here and there are a couple of stores, and every day you have a robot, okay? And every day this robot has to go to a store and get you something, and then has to this coffee shop and get a coffee and come back home. So it has to move, go, make a left, make a right, all that stuff, buy something, So a few commands, and this has to be done every day. So if you have to, under normal circumstances, you have to actually code this every time, and this would be essentially the functionality of this robot, right? In a normal situation, you have to code this over and over and call all of these instructions to get to the coffee shop, get to the store, buy something, get back to the house. All these instructions, they have to be all in a line, in many lines of code, and they have to be repeated over and over in your program, right? But instead, we're going to do something better. What we can do is that we can take all of these instructions, right, turn them into a single function, and all we do throughout our program is call that single function. Essentially what we do is we box all of this. We put all of these codes into a single box, and whenever we need it, we just call the name of that box, and all those codes are going to run essentially. And that is how a function works, and essentially that's how a custom function works. And the way you actually define a custom function is very, very simple. You start with the keyword def, which again goes for define, right? That's when you say, okay, this is a function that I want to build. And then after that, you just enter the name of the function, whatever you want to give it as a name, and then open and close parentheses and columns. And that's basically the name of your function. And under this, when you actually do this, this is automatically going to indent. We're going to go over this in the next video, and you're going to see actually all this stuff in action. But when you actually define a function, it automatically indents everything else after it. And this is where you basically tell what this function is supposed to do, all the code, whether it's an if statement, anything this function is supposed to do. This is where you define it and exactly tell it what it's supposed to do. In this case, I just added some mumbo jumbo, but for example, you see we got this move right, move down. It would be going back to this like street example, right? Move down, go move forward, go right, go back, like all that. So this would be essentially the function to get the coffee for me, right? So like this robot will follow this function over and over whenever I need it, and whenever I need to do this, I would just call this function. So when you define a function, again, this is how you do it. You just use the def keyword and then define it, right? Give it a name, open and close parentheses, and then colon, and then you simply just add whatever code you want to give it, and that's it. And then when you want to call this function, you're going to call it exactly the way you call any other function, like the print function, for example. When you put print, when you type down print, it's going to have an open and close parentheses, right? So that is basically what it is. That's how you call a function. So guys, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to kind of introduce you a little bit visually to functions. You can download this resource, by the way, in the resource section. Download this PDF, take a look at it for yourself, if you need help understanding it. But let me know, and in next video, next lesson, we're going to actually get a little bit hands-on with this, and we're going to define a few functions, and you're going to understand a little bit more about how built-in functions specifically work. And also, we will talk about like custom functions and all that stuff. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions about functions so far and how you define them. If not, I'll see you in the next lesson.